Hulu, A Paradise, Season 1 reveals what happened to the world and how it was destroyed. The show has kept the day of the apocalypse a secret, but when the veil lifts, frightening and surprising aspects about the characters and their decisions emerge. By the end of the episode, Paradise residents learn that the world is more than they were told. It doesn't simplify things, especially with Xavier Collins. Spoilers ahead. 10 years before the world ends, the actual event. People like Samantha Redford were made aware of the likelihood of the end of the world. Samantha took the scientists' advice and created Paradise, even though most people ignored them. A dormant Antarctic volcano, so far, was supposedly going to erupt to set off the end of the world, according to the hypothesis. They had hoped that the earthquake activity would provide a deadline by which they could complete all of their tasks. However, the plan falls through when the volcano suddenly erupts, leaving Samantha and Cal with only one day to escape their families to Paradise. Unprecedented tsunamis are caused by the enormous eruption. Even at higher elevations, areas below 300 feet above sea level are deemed hopeless because of the enormous destructive power of the waves. As the waves sweep over South American coastlines, they begin in places like Australia and New Zealand. Everyone is in a state of panic as the United States is also about to be hit by a tsunami in just a few hours. While everyone, including White House staff, is still attempting to make sense of what's happening, Cal Bradford has a moral dilemma. Upon realizing that some may think this is simply another temporary issue, war preparations by nations unaffected by the calamity exacerbate the situation. Preventing or encroaching upon other people's lands is what they are getting ready for. If this strategy is implemented, all nuclear countries will unleash their arsenals on each other, ensuring that the detonation of nuclear bombs will eliminate all possibility of human survival during the tsunami. At the episode's conclusion, Cal learns that the United States is also under attack and that they need to strike back in order to protect themselves and their prospects of survival. But don't worry, there's still hope. No specific date for the end of the world was given to Xavier, but he was informed that it was imminent. Uncertain of the exact time, he understood that the world would eventually come to an end. Because of this, he was powerless to stop his wife from going to Atlanta for work. Like a billion other people on Earth, he had no clue things would get so out of hand so fast, so he was caught entirely unawares when it began to happen. His first concern is ensuring his wife's survival, even though he has already taken his children to safety, mostly because they are near the president's son. Xavier is given a window of opportunity by Cal to convince his wife to meet him at a specific location where an aircraft will be waiting to take her away. Although the plan appears to be straightforward and effective on paper, the reality is far more complicated. Once Cal decides to reveal the truth to the public about the end of the world, they become completely unintelligible. Even though Cal had been informed that it would cause panic, his goal was to provide people more time to return to their loved ones and spend their last moments together. The entire country is thrown into chaos as a result of people being terrified and aggressive. As Cal is being evacuated from the White House, we witness the direct impact of his statement. The members of his crew, who will be left behind, get increasingly anxious to board the plane that is meant for Cal and the selected few. As soon as they learn of what is happening and how they are being abandoned, when things escalate, Xavier and the others have no choice but to slaughter each other in order to save Cal and ensure that they may reach Paradise together. Xavier maintains communication with his wife and attempts to get her on the plane that would take her to him and their children, but she ultimately does not make it. After Xavier learned she's been abandoned, he considered returning to Atlanta. However, Cal stops him, reminding him that he still needs to look after his children. Even though it hurts, Xavier must face reality and get on the aircraft to be with his kids after learning that Cal knew his wife wouldn't make it. As if the end of the world's survival wasn't bad enough, the heads of nuclear nations chose to put an end to it themselves. Eventually, Cal finds out that the United States is also the target of many missiles, with one of them en route to Atlanta. As they exchange nuclear missiles with each other, many have told him to fire off nuclear missiles in retaliation, but he has other choices. In a scene from 1962, when the globe was on the verge of nuclear war, due to the Cuban Missile Crisis, we are transported back in time. A general explains to his wife how a single man's defiance of orders from higher-ups ended up saving the day. However, he is concerned that such a man may not hold power the next time around, and that a backup plan should be prepared to rescue the planet. A device designed to be utilized only in the most dire of circumstances is developed by the general in an effort to prevent the recurrence of nuclear war in the event that the United States becomes the target of nuclear missiles threatening its permanent destruction. There is a means to halt the missiles in their tracks. The development of a fail-safe switch has the potential to eliminate radio waves and all other forms of electromagnetic radiation. This would result in the permanent destruction of all communication infrastructure, including radio towers, cellular towers, and satellite systems. The silver lining is that it would also render nuclear weapons useless, saving the world from certain doom. Although this effect would be lasting and set the world back 500 years at least, we would still have our planet. Nobody knows about this swap except Cal, the president. When ordered to launch his own rockets, he chooses to ignore the order. Samantha attempts to intervene when he brings it up by explaining that they would have a very hard time determining when the surface will be back to normal if they lost all communication with the surface. Cal remains unmoved by her reasons because he is determined to offer the remaining survivors chance. However little it may appear, the residents of Atlanta, including Xavier's wife, were likely spared when Cal pushed the button just as a missile was about to hit Atlanta, ensuring that the missile never touched down. Xavier Collins held Samantha Redford at gunpoint at the conclusion of the previous episode. Along with the other billionaires, he was prepared to kill her and punish her for the lies, dishonesty, and, most importantly, the death she and her people in paradise had caused. But then she surprises him with an offer. Thanks to her, he has an opportunity to reconcile with his wife. Despite his initial skepticism, he eventually comes around once she reveals that Cal had the power to halt the missile en route to Atlanta, playing a recording of the communications received from the surface. She put all doubt out of his mind. Among the survivors who speak out, he recognizes his wife's voice among others. Not only does she identify herself, but also her spouse and children. Because of this, Xavier can no longer deny that Samantha is telling the truth. Despite his joy at his wife's survival, he knows that Samantha will only assist him in retrieving her if he agrees to a large catch. He opens fire in an attempt to frighten her into it, but she has a secret move. The truth about his daughter Presley's whereabouts is exposed by a brief phone conversation. As Xavier's confidant, she ought to have been protected. However, he verifies that the female is not in his company. Quick to accept blame, Samantha uses Presley to put pressure on Xavier. She is pleading with him to set her people free, return her weapons, and return paradise to its former glory. Above all else, she is determined to uncover the identity of Cal Bradford's killer. From what we can see, the murderer is not a resident of paradise. Rather, someone from outside the compound carried out the murder. In exchange for Xavier's assistance in identifying that person, Samantha has promised to help him reconcile with his family. The expression on Xavier's face betrays his helplessness. He can't help but give in to Samantha's demands.